Good day viewers, so I'm going to be recapping this vintage Philips AM radio and cassette deck combo from the Corolla. It's been parked in the sun all these bloody years, since the car was over the years. It's a 1977 model, that car, it's original. And yeah, being parked in the sun over the years of heat, it's gotten up, really gotten that hot inside the cabin. And that heat would have taken its toll on the electrolytic capacitors in here. I have had it apart before, and all I can smell is just capacitors, like electrolytic crap, but they have been leaking. So yeah, I can make it perform a little bit better by changing and put some fresh new ones in. That's a cassette deck, which I'll show you what the insides of that look like later on. I yet to find it where I put all my tapes. I've got a collection of cassette tapes somewhere, and a cleaning cassette. I've got to find them. I go through this with a cleaning cassette and yeah, play a tape where we can see the mechanism. We'll have the top off it and we'll see it going. But yeah, I'll need some star screwdrivers and we'll go get them. Okay viewers, I've got my TV antenna hooked up here. Pretty sufficient for an AM antenna. Got some radio. Very loud. Got interference from my very inefficient DC power supply. Now, as I should have realised, but 2 diodes ain't 4-way rectified. I should have realised that when I was making them. I'm supposed to use 4 diodes. But yeah, got to change this capacitor, because I can see the plastic's actually shrunk down due to the heat. That's a 16 volt 1000 microfarad, which is pretty big for a 1000 microfarad capacitor. Back then was pretty big. Right nowadays it's a lot smaller than that, so I'm looking at my bag of replacements. I should have one in here. I'm going to find, I think, there. 1000 microfarad, 16 volt. And that's the replacement looks like. It's not even, yeah, better half the size of that. So I've got a replacement for that one. That should take it most of the hum and interference from the power supply, because I get out and out of noises and stuff through this head unit as well. But yeah, we've got a 470 microfarad to replace, 16 volt. Yeah. Here's a tuning wheel for this one, all metal. This is an old Philips set. Philips product, and that's also a matching Philips cassette deck. It weighs a ton. Yeah, I've got to pull this board out, so I've got to tip it upside down. Under these screw here. Very basic little AM radio back then. A lot of these early sets are pretty basic and very well built. And that's the amplifier chip, which yeah, heatsink paste is gone. That's the amplifier there. Now in this little metal can here, I've got little inductors and chokes to help filter any additional noises. Yeah, there's nothing in there I've got to touch, so everything's fine. Just going to replace these 2 big filter capacitors, and then anything else I need to replace. Because the heat from parking in the sun does take its toll. Shut it off. Alright, just tip it up so I can get to the underneath of that capacitor. It's an Elner brand. So yeah, they were pretty good capacitors. If I can just, without breaking any wires, I can just flip it up, get to the underside, and remove those old caps. So yeah, I get this little gate wick out. I can start to do a replacement. So yeah. Be very careful not to snap any wires off, because it's got a little room in here. So yeah, I can get under there like that with one hand and hold it, and use the other hand just to hit it with a soldering iron and get the gate wick out. So yeah, I do that. Probably can't get much of this on camera. I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but yeah. See how well the camera will pick that up. And this isn't a very good soldering iron either. If I had a proper rubber soldering station, well, this would be very easy, but I have to make do with this crappy soldering iron, which gets really hot. It's going to make it quick. Hold the wick with one finger, and with the other hand just dab it into the solder. There we go, got one bit off. That's one leg unsoldered. Smells vintage. See how that worked. We just wobble it a bit. Break off any glue that's on the bottom of the capacitor. So yeah, it's all very dried out, this capacitor. The electrolyte would have gone bad, started to go bad, being in the heat, and it's only rated to 85 degrees Celsius. It's only rated to. This would have done some work, these capacitors, especially the torch that have had been in the hot car. So now I'm going to bend the legs straight. A little screwdriver here. Alright, if I can get to the leg, which is here. Here you can see on the camera they've actually bent the legs. So I have to straighten them out with a screwdriver and make it easier to just pull the cap out without breaking any circuit traces on the board. So I've got to very carefully with the flat screwdriver to straighten them out. That's one. Now I've still got a bit of solder underneath that one. So yeah, some legs or some components may be a bit stubborn to come off the board. So we'll do this one. Very careful with the soldering on. And yeah, especially with capacitors, if you heat them up too much they might start to pop, so you have to be careful of that too. No, still got a lot of solder on that. While it's hold the soldering on it and just pull and bend it as it's melted. There we go. That's just glue to set it onto the board with, but as you can see, it's all shrunk, that plastic. It's been getting a bit, old. It's not much, you can't really tell by weight if it's any good or not. With some capacitors, if you look closer where it's sealed, you see like an orangey browny stuff, and that's where the electrolyte all dried out and poured out of it. But yeah, there's not much on the board, a little bit of leakage on the board, but so it has got started to go bad. So that's the old one. That's what a new one looks like. Big difference in size. This is our vented type. This is a Japanese capacitor too, so I'm putting good ones back in it. Now the polarity. I've got to find what the polarity was before I go any further. And that was that way, I believe. Yeah. And I looked at it this way to get the brand name. And it was... No, it was this way, so yeah, because the glue. So yeah, before you put a capacitor out, take note of the unpolarity. So as you can see here where it was sitting, the negative is on the outside, this side's negative. So take note of that. Because this board, these old circuit boards don't tell you that. Okay, yep, that's exactly what it came out. So yeah, it's got to face that way. You get it positive as a long one, goes in the inside. So yeah, there you go. Now we can solder in a new capacitor. They don't always fit very good either, so I can put a bit of leeway on that. Have it slightly elevated off the board. So yeah, you don't have to push a capacitor all the way onto the board if you don't have to. If there's room, it can stay up like that without putting too much stress on the component. Okay, now I could just bend one leg out to hold it, so I can solder one to the other leg. Before I do that, I'm going to get my solder and my side cutters. Okay, let's see if I get the camera to set a soldering procedure here. Very carefully hold the this might be a little bit tricky at this position, this angle. I've got to see if I can screw just fell out, so I'll put that up there. It's a bit of a tricky position here. Just unplug this power plug, something like that. That one's a power, and this big one here is your speakers at the bottom. Ooh, very hard to unplug. So yeah, it's probably never been unplugged. It's preserved from new. So I'll tip it up. I might have to take these brackets off too, so I'll do that. No, gotta have the right tools. I think it's impossible. There we go, just broke it. Yeah, you might hear a crack. That's how tight they are. Never been off, so I can tip it up on its side. Let gravity pull the solder onto my component instead of soldering up in an awkward position, which makes the job look messy. You can see that. There's the capacitor there. I bent the leads so the component doesn't fall out, so hopefully I can get a good angle to work with. Alright, gravity's already started to act on it. That's enough solder, that's good. Okay, viewers, well, like that's pretty good. That's plenty of solder on there. That's our new component installed. Now I've got to get my side cutters, which I forgot to get. Cut those legs off so they're not going to obstruct or short anything out. Okay viewers, I'm going to replace this 16 volt 470 microfarad cap. I only have the replacement I've only got is in 35 volts. It's the same but 35 volts, but that shouldn't matter because yeah, I've got more safety margin. So take note of where my negative is. This edge here on the outside pointing that way is a negative, which is where the negative of that capacitor's got to face. So we'll cut off our used braid. I always buy the wider stuff, 3mm wide. Got more value for money, pick up more solder per length. So yeah, it goes further. And then the legs are over here so I can hit there. Getting smoked out. Should have a window open actually. Open the window. Don't want to breathe this nasty stuff in. Surely you should have a fan on too if you're doing this, so. Alright, now I can roll the capacitor out carefully. Alright, now yeah, this one has bent leads too, so I've got to be careful. Use a soldering iron, so it's got like a flat screwdriver edge on it, and you lift as it was heated to bend the lead back. So that's kind of a bonus for this. Bent that leg back, now I can take a bit more solder off. And the components will just drop straight out. Okay, let's try that. Yeah, I've never seen a capacitor with a rubber seal that colour before. And if you smell it, yeah, I can faintly smell electrolytic stuff. It's slightly bulged out there, but it's a tower brand capacitor, so yeah. It's well sealed so that when it could go bang, but yeah, it is slightly bulged, so that does need to be replaced. So negative, take note of your negative. Which if I go by the way this one was installed, it was facing okay that way by the looks of it. So this is the right way I install it. Bend one lead out like that. So gravity doesn't pull and the component don't fall out. Hold that back. I'll leave it slightly elevated off the board just for protection reasons and stuff like that. Now, some solder on. Now, as long as your microfarad's the same, or your microfarad, or your microfarad is very close to, you're fine. But your voltage doesn't matter because, yeah, 35 volts, it's in the right threshold. I've got more safety margin with a higher voltage. I think they say 3 or 2/3 or 3/4 or something of their full charge voltage or something they work best at. It's good for a capacitor. So yeah, it should be fine for this. That's it. I'll solder it on. Careful not to hit plastic nearby either. Those soldering irons. That's well and truly installed. That's a good solder joint. So yeah, cut these legs off. The radio mightn't perform any better, but they might get some slight improvements out of it. But those capacitors were slightly starting to get bad. Okay, let's put it back together and test it. That's our antenna. Lay this board back down. That one there, and that one there is our accessory for a cassette deck, which goes down there. It's also part of where the power goes in. Speakers. Sorry, our power's there. The big one at the bottom is our speakers. That's all plugged in. Let's see if she works.
But verify. Finance, all ordinaries up 16 points at the plunge rate, 48.80.
Haven't got no crackling either, so it's good.
Up 40 is up at 16. BHP is up at 50. Is unchanged. The dollar's.
Yeah, the radio's a bit better now. They used to have interference from that power supply, but now those new capacitors, it's cutting most of it out. There's a bit of slight hump, because that's because that power supply is not properly, I haven't done it full wave. And I've only got a crappy filter capacitor anyway, it's probably had it now. It's only a generic Chinese one anyway. And not hot, so that's good. Black station.
Time is 12:08.
Yeah. Pulling a bit too much current from that little transformer. That power supply didn't do it properly.
Thanks to National Tiles Mildura, guaranteed lowest prices on.
Now, if I might just change these ones as well, because they've got an extra amplifier that's getting a bit heat sink on it. I may not need to change these ones, but it's doing fine anyway. That's our light, which is okay. That's a high voltage light too, so which lights up in here. There's another light there. Yeah, it's pretty well built, this little radio. It's push button type, AM only, Philips, so tuning is our power. Additional hum to charge those capacitors up. Very basic little radio. Okay, we've got 10 volt, 330 microfarad here. Yeah, I think this is two major ones. They're probably the ones that work the hardest. And being tortured from the heat in that car isn't going to do any good in them either, so yeah. Probably good that I changed them. Yeah, there you go. I've had a little bit of elevation off the circuit board. You don't have to, but I like to do it just to keep a bit of airflow around them. Bit of additional cooling for them. So let's try put it back together, and that'll be this radio all fixed up. Next we'll see that cassette player works properly. I know I used to play tape slowly, so that's something I'll have to fix. So yeah.